We've got winners and losers from preseason week 3 right now on Fantasy Football Today Express. Well, hello, everybody. It's Adam and Jamey here talking about the best and the worst from preseason week 3. I want to start with the Tennessee Titans backfield because both of them look good. But Pollard, having a nice preseason, clearly ahead of Tyjae Spears. I know he's been a riser for you, not necessarily just this week, but throughout training camp. So where are we now on Tony Pollard?
I've been this way for a couple of weeks where I prefer Pollard over Spears, simply because I think if you're looking for like defined roles, I think Pollard makes a little bit more sense to be their lead rusher, and Spears will work in passing downs, but both will do each of the other jobs, as we've seen. Spears had a goal line opportunity, scored a touchdown in their first preseason game. Pollard did so in this previous preseason game. So it's not like I don't want either one, because I certainly do. I would just draft Pollard first. He is a round 6 pick for me, and Spears is basically round 7.
Okay. Have you seen enough from Will Levis to be confident in him in, let's say, a super flex league?
Yes. I think, again, when you start to look at what he can do in this offense, better offensive line play, certainly better receiving, better weapons, with Pollard and Ridley joining the team. So better weapons, better coaching, more aggressive coaching from a passing perspective. So for me, I would draft him ahead of Cousins, Rodgers, and Watson. And I use that trio specifically because they're all either coming off of injury. In the case of Watson, you don't know how healthy he is right now with the shoulder. So I think there's plenty of upside there. I think he'll run a little bit, so we talk about that 300, 400 yard range. I don't think he's going to be a 500 yard guy, but 350 wouldn't surprise me. And you saw the upside. It was a 34-point game in his first game last year against the Falcons, where the arm talent's there, and so if he can be protected and have guys that make plays. He was 7 of 8 in this preseason game, and the lone miss, shockingly enough, was an end zone miscue with him and Calvin Ridley. So here we go again. But in any event, I think yes, Will Levis has top 20 upside.
Yeah, and Will Levis, your 2 quarterback that we're hoping to see a step from, and Bryce Young, he didn't play at all in the preseason, and then he played 12 snaps this week and had a nice outing, 6 of 8, 70 yards and a touchdown. This is we pretty much never talk about him because he doesn't really run that much. So he's going to have a good year as a passer. Thoughts on the likelihood that Bryce Young becomes relevant?
Like I said on the full-length episode, I think Young, Levis, Bo Nix, these guys are going to be late-round picks in Superflex and 2 quarterback leagues, late round by comparison to most quarterbacks. Not going to be drafted in 1 quarterback leagues, but there's going to be weeks where they're streaming. I mean, you think about for the 2 non-rookies, the 2 second-year guys, they got coaching upgrades. They got offensive line upgrades. They got receiver upgrades. These are things you look for. And so are they going to be top 12 consistent quarterbacks? No. But could they push for some good stretches because of how their teams operate and because of how they're performing? Absolutely. I mean, these were 2 guys that were considered to be the best of their class, highly touted prospects. Young, the number 1 overall pick. So there's talent there. Just protect them and guys get open.
Jerome Ford is someone we absolutely have to talk about as a winner here because Nick Chubb's going to start the season on the PUP list. Where are you going to end up with Jerome Ford in your rankings?
Round 9. Heath said something on the show when you asked him, where would you take Chubb? He said round 10. And I started thinking to myself, like, should I take Chubb first with the upside of what he can become, which is kind of how I've been operating, or take the safe route of Ford, knowing that there is still potential of a setback for Chubb, or, he's, really brought along slowly and you're not getting the best of Nick Chubb until week 7, week 8, week 9. I think, again, I'm looking in this scenario of short-term, long-term. Short-term is Ford. Long-term, though, if Chubb is right, you're hoping for the best of Nick Chubb. So I still would take him first. But I think Jerome Ford is going to be great. First month of the season, you said it. From week 2 on, he was top 13 running back, most likely top 20 points per game. I think if that's the kind of play you're getting in round 9, you're taking it all day long.
All right, we're going to take a break here on Fantasy Football Today Express. Come back and maybe see if we have any more winners, maybe some losers from preseason week 3. All right, we're back, and I know Brian Thomas is someone that has really caught your eye this preseason. He had 1 impressive catch. He had officially, I think, only 1 target, but as I recall, he had a second one that was called back on a penalty. But I haven't been as enthusiastic about Thomas as you guys have because I just don't see, I'd take Keon Coleman over him. I see a path for Coleman to lead the Bills in targets. I would be shocked if that happened with Brian Thomas, who's done everything this preseason without Christian Kirk, He's done everything downfield. I think he's going to be a downfield guy, but not a consistent guy. So I'm willing to be wrong here, and I'm not like out on him, but I haven't really seen much that's made me consider him a riser. You and Dave and Heath obviously all do. So what do you think I'm missing?
Well, I think first off, there's 200 targets vacated in the Jacksonville offense with the guys who have left in Calvin Ridley and Zay Jones. And Kirk right now is banged up. You mentioned we haven't seen him do a lot with Kirk. By all accounts, when Kirk was healthy, he's going to be the slot receiver and not play into receiver sets. So it's a matter of buying into the prospect who's young, but coming off a fantastic season at LSU. And I think the Keon Coleman reference is accurate. But let's just take it a step further. You got Thomas, you got Coleman, you got Odunze, you got Worthy. They're all kind of bunched together depending on whatever rankings you look at. I know they are for me. Mm-hmm. So who has the best ability to get the most targets, be with a good quarterback, step up and be a consistent fantasy threat? Coleman. And you can make a case for all of them, right?
Yeah, I think it's Coleman.
I don't disagree.
But he's my least favorite player of the group, but I think targets favor him.
And again, he might, look, we could sit here and say Odunze is the third receiver on the Bears to start the season, but by the end of the year, he could be 2 or maybe even 1, depending on how things go for him. Yeah. Worthy right now is looking very good, but Marquise Brown hasn't been practicing because of his shoulder injury. So there's lots of ways these things can go, and Heath brought up, I haven't seen Coleman do anything. That doesn't bother me at all. He's been on the field. Josh Allen hasn't played much. It's not like Josh Allen's played 4 quarters of football and Keon Coleman's done nothing but run routes. He's going to be involved. So if you're a Coleman guy, take Coleman. If you're a Odunze guy, take Odunze. Try and take 2. It's not a bad idea if you have your 3 receivers or 4 receivers locked in. Take 2 shots on these guys because, as you know, you've done more research on this than anybody. 900-yard receivers, they tend to take off in the second half of the season. And I think all these guys are going to have a little bit of a slow start. But Thomas has that big playability, and I don't know if a lot of these guys have that level and targets and opportunity. Like Worthy's going to make a lot of big plays, but he may be the 3rd receiver and 4th option. So it's just a matter of how much you want to buy into this Jacksonville offense. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have a big bounce back season, and I like Brian Thomas.
Okay, any losers from the preseason? Just doesn't necessarily have to be week 3.
From the preseason. Yeah. The Steelers, it doesn't feel good to, be in that camp, based on what we've seen. But as we talked about, Russell Wilson hasn't played very much. The injured guys, not that there's been many, thankfully, but, Marquise Brown's injury has, sort of ruined what we thought was going to be a big, think about the roller coaster of Marquise Brown. Mm-hmm. Rashee Rice is getting suspended. Marquise Brown is basically a top 24 caliber receiver. We kept saying that. The minute that Rice suspension happens, Brown's going to be a round 5 pick. Then Worthy starts to look good in camp, gets healthy. Remember, he had the mini camp injury.
Yeah. No, I wrote a breakouts column in Marquise Brown, even though he's had a good career. I was like, yeah, he's going to have his best career, best season, know, because I thought suspension for Rice and Worthy was hurt, and now he's clearly a faller. Even when he's back, I don't know. I still like Brown. Like, I think he could lead the team in receiving even when he's back. I guess probably Kelce. All right, you know what? I'm going to throw this out there. I've been impressed enough by Worthy. I like Marquise Brown. We know what Rice can do. I have stopped drafting Travis Kelce. He used to be a target for me. I skip him now. There are enough reasons, I think. And target competition is now one of them where it wasn't before.
So where would you be comfortable taking him? Because you're obviously not going to pass
him. I would tell people that it's okay to take him like 33 and beyond, late round 3. He's just not for me. And the Porta too. I don't really see them as that much different than Andrews and McBride. And you can just wait around and get those guys, maybe even get those guys in the 5th round sometimes. But yeah, Kelce's been a guy that I started the year being like, oh, maybe I'll take him. Or I started draft season, like I might take him in the 2nd round. Now I think he's a late 3rd round pick, and I haven't taken him in a while. You don't take him either, right?
No, not unless it's the back end of round 3.
Yeah,
and he's never there anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
I was fearful about the snap counts.
That's another thing. Yeah. I'm not as fearful because he had the foot injury last year, but I don't know. I guess
it goes hand in hand. They don't need him to be Superman.
Yeah. The case I always made for him was he was the number 1 per game last year with 5 touchdowns. And it's so easy to see him scoring 10. But I don't know. I'm feeling this receiving core. I think they got a really good group. They have the deepest receiving core they've had. Not as good as peak Hill and peak Kelce is better than this, but this is the deepest receiving core, I'd say. Yeah. All right, we'll see how it plays out. I don't like deep receiving cores. That's not good for fantasy. So it's good for the quarterback, but it's not great for the other guys. For Jamey, I'm Adam. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today Express.